All right, good morning, everybody. We are on our very last. Connie Miller.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, there you are. I was going to say, where are you on my list? All right, we're on our last lesson. Wasn't it just a lovely few chapters to read?
I thought it was tough.
It was tough. What tangled webs we weave, huh? Oh, Father, thank you for the study of Judges. Bless Kay Arthur and those who has helped her in this wondrous calling you have given her in the name of Jesus. We ask that you help us look at our lives, at the state of our nation, at the state of our world in a new and fresh way. Let us see ourselves especially as you see us, so that we may experience revival in our own lives, so that we might be renewed and energized in our walk and service for you. We have seen that you use very ordinary men and women to accomplish significant tasks in the work of your kingdom. May our prayer be that you would use us to deliver your people from the darkness that envelops us when we're not enlightened by the word. Thank you for the assurance that if this is truly our prayer, it will be answered. Constantly keep the truth of John 15:16 before us, so that we will never forget that we are chosen by you and ordained for good works. Thank you for your promise that whenever we ask in your name, you will do it. We love you, Father, and ask this in the name of the one who sits at your right hand, interceding for us. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So we are at the end, but just to review it, Judges 1 and 2, Israel did not drive out the enemy. The cycle of the entire book is also included in chapter 2. What was that cycle that we keep on seeing?
They did what was right in their own eyes.
Yeah, they just kept it up, didn't they? What else what was the next step?
They would be turned over to an oppressor, and then they would cry to God, and then God would send them a judge to rule over them.
And then the judge would die.
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
They do it all over again.
It starts all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Billy. I saw that you snuck in. Let's see here. Did anybody else? I saw Steve and Ray sneak in too. Well, Judges 3 through 16, if you wanted to put that as a segment division, that would be the judges, wouldn't it not? Because we go through the judges in chapter 3, Othniel, however you say it, Ehud and Shamgar. 4 and 5, Deborah and Barak, although Barak was not a judge. Remember, he was just with Deborah. 6 through 8 was Gideon. Then 9, it's not a judge, but it's Gideon's son, and Abimelech as king. Then we had Tola and Jar. Then we have Javath, and then mentioned, those 3. Okay, and then on chapters 13 through 16, we had Samson. So in Judges 17 through 21, you have a repeated statement, which is there is no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It's not the only time, but it really gets down to it. So if you look at Judges, you can pull out your dates of Judges on page 86 of your homework and your map. You might as well, because we'll be looking at those, so you might want to pull those out.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I say that, as I'm fumbling through here. No, the last 2 pages. So the dates of the judge, did that not help y'all a lot?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you learn by looking at this stuff about the timing?
It was before the judges?
Actually, that's at the beginning. Yeah. It's kind of hard to decipher that, isn't it? Do you realize that's why they had us read these chapters first week? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you. Everybody yesterday, we were sitting there going, I wish I would have realized that then. Now it's like, yeah, makes me, because, you kind of wonder, why are they having us read this, Didn't you think the same thing?
Mm-hmm. No,
that's-
you know
Yes.
what? As I was reading it, especially about the one with the concubine, I kept
Uh-huh.
thinking, didn't I read this before or something?
Yeah, week 1. How soon we forget, don't we?
Oh, yes.
So, you can see where Laish, or however you say that is, Leshem, it's Leshem or Laish. I don't know. It's called Leshem in Joshua, but it's the same town.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Dan took it. Okay, if you look at the map, Benjamin's way down here, just north of no, not Dan, excuse me. It's just west of Jerusalem, isn't it?
Mhm.
But they went all the way up there to find a place to take, but they couldn't beat the people that was in the land that was given to them. I just think that's kind of weird, don't you? Do you get
Yes.
that?
Wondered about that.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but what I did on mine is my map is I mark, where it is, and then I put the scripture of where it is. So in like Dan or Laish, I have 1829 renamed a city. That's just my way of putting it in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So 17 and 18 took place before Samson was a judge.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember that Samson was from the tribe of Dan?
Mhm.
Yeah. So in Judges 19 through 21, what did you learn about this? Who are because if you look at this, if you look at the individual chapters or each of the chapters, it doesn't really name too many people, does it? Like only one person is actually named. So in 1921, to help us with the timing, okay? And that's why we have on page 77, there's a little genealogy chart, right? Is that how you say it?
Mhm.
So we see that Phineas is actually who? The grandson
Mo-
of
Moses,
no,
Aaron. Oh
Of
no,
of Aaron. Yeah, of Aaron. Yeah. And Aaron was Moses's brother, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all remember that, right?
Mhm.
You remember who Moses is?
Mhm.
That was a trick question, yeah. But we also learned that he was born before Israel left Egypt. So even if he was a baby, which he might have been, I don't know. He had to have been at the very first part of Judges. Do you see that?
yes.
Thank you, Ann. Wake you up, everybody. Come
Boy,
on.
I tell you, we're
Yeah.
just sitting like toadstools this morning.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so we also looked at Joshua 22 and 24. What did you learn at that? I'm trying to find what page we looked that up. I have a lot of writing down. Didn't you guys in this one?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we looked at Joshua 22 and 24, and we find that his father Eleazar, the priest, had died. Then he was the next high priest. So Phineas was in the line of Aaron, and the line of Aaron was to be priest. And only a direct lineage to Aaron could be high priest. This is just proving the point of where we are in time, okay?
Mm.
So this put his priesthood at the beginning of the 300 plus years of Judges.
Oh, say that again.
This puts his priesthood at the beginning of the 300 plus years of the Judges. So on the dates of these judges, on page, all these, where's that chart? Where'd I put it, y'all?
It's on 86.
Yeah, I know, but where did I put page 86? Oh, there it
I
is.
don't know.
Days of the judges, okay? So Atheniel was the first judge. So that's probably when Phineas was high priest, right? Wouldn't you think?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Yeah, so he was a contemporary with Phineas. Both are mentioned in Joshua as well as Judges. So 17 through 21 took place close to the beginning of Judges, but they serve as a summary at the end of the book. These chapters show what the times and the people were like. That's why these chapters 17 through 21 is so different. Does that make sense?
Excuse me.
Yeah, I didn't get that when I was doing it. I just gave up. It was like, I'm confused.
It is confusing. That's why I'm kind of going through this,
Yeah,
you know, in such detail. So the information is there. It's just one of those little puzzles you have to put together. And I had to lean on commentaries and notes and everything too to do it. So don't think I'm brilliant, because, you know, I'm not. I just know how to research it. So in chapter 17, let's just focus on 17 now. What do you have down as the chapter theme? Now, you guys, surely somebody does chapter themes.
Mhm.
Micah, household gods, and the Levite priest was a household priest.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Micah hires Levite for idolatrous worship.
Oh, that's good, Billy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in verses 1 through 6, how does this chapter begin?
Micah went to his mother and told her that he had stolen her money.
What had happened? Why do you think he confessed at this point?
Oh, because she was cursing?
Yeah.
yeah,
She cursed the thief.
Yeah, she says, I'm going to curse the thief, right? By the way, they lived in
Apparently
the
he
hill country.
believed she had an effect of doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where it got confusing for me. In verse 3, so okay, so it says, let's see, I wholly dedicate, the mother says, this is in the middle of the verse there. I wholly dedicate the silver from my hand to the Lord for my son to make a graven image and a molten image. So, and I noticed that as I went along in these chapters, so they still believed in God, but I don't know, I didn't understand that. How
Well,
they
do you
believed
think
in God, but they had their gods.
They had pieces of the truth, in other words. They had enough to know that God was supposed to be their God, but they had absolutely no knowledge of the 10 Commandments, of the law, to say, you shall make no graven images. They had adapted the culture around them as a way of worshiping, rather than listening to the writing of Moses. They were not familiar with it. They did not know what God had commanded.
right.
They knew he was supposed to be their God and they knew his name, but that was about it. They
and
really
doesn't
had
that still happen
forsaken.
today?
Oh,
Doesn't
all
it
the
still
time.
happen today?
They do not know the word.
Yeah.
They did not take any time to understand or know what God said.
Yeah,
They just
yeah. I thought
made
maybe
theirs.
they had bits and pieces and they then changed what they understood, determined what they believed.
Basically everyone did what was right in their own eyes,
Yeah,
because they did
Absolutely.
not read and understand what God said, so they could
Yeah.
do what God
But
said.
wasn't that the job of the Levites?
Yeah, which means they were failing. It was.
I
And
think you
he-
hit a point.
this
Go ahead.
young man, so he was, you know, trying to get a job as a priest, and he did so he did have some background. He wasn't like totally ignorant of of the religion. I don't know. I think we don't know if he was a Levite necessarily or not. Is
ac-
that the
actu-
question?
Well, actually, at this point, we don't know if he's a Levite or not. He just says that he's a Levite. Later on, and we will hit it, he is actually named. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's get back to the money. It's always, you got to follow the money, right? So she dedicated the silver. She says, I'm going to take this and I'm going to give it to the Lord. But what did she really do with the money, and how much did she really let loose of?
Not much.
200 out of the 1100, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And then did she really dedicate? Who got the images?
The son.
Micah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but verse 5, he had a shrine, household idols, and consecrated one of his sons that he might become a priest.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
Yep.
totally threw me. It was like, what was he thinking of?
Obviously, they decided they were going to do what they
Yeah.
wanted.
It seems like he's a religious man, but don't you think he was probably motivated by superstition and self-preservation?
Yes.
Mhm.
He was developing his own religion, wasn't he?
Mhm.
How many TV and preachers or whatever you see making their own religion? I hope you don't watch them.
No.
I don't watch TV, period.
Well, that's a good idea. Verse 6 describes the times Micah was doing right in his own eyes. In 6, he says, in those days, there was no king of Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. So they're talking about Micah, and then they throw that in. Then they talk about the Levite, then they throw that in. Do you see what they're trying to tell you? Everybody was just living and making out their own way, just like it is today.
Mhm.
That was
So
the only way I could make sense of any of this, is to keep coming back to that verse. It's like, why would they do that? Oh, verse 6 in chapter 17.
well, I mean, we got to talking yesterday. I mean, if you look at what they're teaching children in school,
Oh, gosh, that's awful.
it is awful. And it's to make your own religion out of your own self, is it not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And it's teaching everything perverted and disgusting,
And
Yeah.
how the Benjaminites were like the original LGBT people, when they wouldn't give up the people who did that terrible thing to the concubine, which was terrible that she was out there to begin with, which was terrible that, they wanted to have homosexuals. It's like that's where the first LGBT groups
Q, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing to note is the Levite from Bethlehem in Judah. Okay, Bethlehem. Now, Levites were supposed to live where?
They
In
didn't.
designated cities.
In the designated cities. Was Bethlehem, was a Bethlehem a designated city?
Yep.
No.
I
So
don't
he was,
think so.
no, it's not.
Mhm.
Looking for a place to live. So what was he doing?
Roaming.
Not what he was supposed to.
Yeah, he was roaming around trying to find a better gig, wasn't he?
Mhm.
Opportunist.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Mhm.
So he came and Mike invited him and to be part of his family, right?
Yeah, to be a priest.
So yeah, he says, I want you to be a priest to my family and I'll take you in and you'll be like a son to me. And the way that the verbiage is given in the Hebrew, it indicates that it was replacing his elder son. So what would happen to that elder son's inheritance?
It would go to this Levite.
Yeah.
So that would
And-
cause serious issues.
Do you think?
That would
Yeah.
be definitely not so bueno in that house. But again, everyone's doing what's right in their own eyes.
So
Yeah,
now
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I'm
Robbie.
beginning to kind of understand this now as we're talking it through. So Micah was actually seeking he was seeking God, but he didn't know how to seek God. And so he came
I don't
up
think
with
he even
with it.
cared, did he?
No, I think he was
I think
literally,
the fact that he wanted a priest, it was like he was so confused. I think with the lady, I don't know her name, when she was explaining all of this, because he didn't know what was truth. He was
Yeah.
trying to find his own truth.
Yeah.
Instead of God's truth. Well, he
Yeah.
concentrated the young men. Who was allowed to consecrate anybody as a priest?
the other priests, the
Yeah.
high priest.
The
Well,
high-
yeah, verse 13.
Yeah, I read that Micah makes himself judge and jury.
Right.
Yes. And do you know what it meant to have a your own very own priest?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a status situation?
Mhm.
Oh, was it?
Oh, look at me. I have my own priest.
Yeah, it
Oh,
very
it's all
definitely.
about money and power.
There you
Yes,
go.
Yes.
Ah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was totally self-centered on Micah's part.
It was.
Selfish.
Yes, I agree.
He
It
was
was totally
establishing his own
selfish.
kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Uh-huh.
Because he said, after all, God will prosper me because I have a Levite as a priest. Oh, I'm hot shot. I'm hot stuff,
Establishing himself as his own king.
Mm.
Now, we also looked at in our cross references on day 1, number 3, we looked at what a priest was, what a high priest was, and what a Levite was. What sort of things did you learn in here?
I couldn't figure out if Micah was in his heart was trying to worship God, or was he a con man?
What do y'all think?
I vote for Khan.
I vote for
Yeah,
Khan
I vote
too.
Well, I mean,
he's
look
introduced
at,
the guy who stole the money, so I think he's a con man.
I think he's a con man. Yeah.
yeah,
All right,
and
let's
look at how people do it today. Okay, I mean, the folks who are doing what we've talked about do not appear to be searching for God. I think it's no different than back in the day with Micah.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing new under the sun, y'all. Didn't we
have a
read that
question.
somewhere?
I have a question.
Okay.
We're talking, that they didn't, maybe he did not know, they didn't know then the 10 commandments and things. Doesn't that go back to the parents and to the priest and the high priest because they weren't reading and continually teaching the things of God? Just like parents today are allowing their children to get into things and they're not researching it, not thinking about it, even the things of God. And then I think about the Jews, they have a form of godliness, but they're not really, because
It's different, isn't it?
because the way they look at it, it's what the priest said, it's what people before them said, but it's not what does God say.
Well,
Even though
the one thing, if you actually are searching for God, God will reveal himself if you're doing it honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, he promises that.
Agreed.
So if they are being led astray to this extent, I would argue it's because they're not really searching for God. They're searching for something else, and they're couching it in religious terms.
I kind of agree with that. I wonder
Like
how
feel
much
good stuff. Go ahead, Lisa.
of God's. I wonder how much of God's the 10 Commandments were available. Could they have gone and found them?
Well, let's go and you
think
should have
so.
found that in your research in what we're looking at right here. What did you learn in Exodus 28 about the priest? This is just facts.
Descendants of Aaron.
Yes, descendants of Aaron were chosen by God to be priests of Israel. Descendants of Aaron, not of Moses, not of not of da-da-da. Only the line of Aaron.
right.
And Aaron was in the tribe of Levi, but Moses was also from the tribe of Levi.
Yep.
So, but only under Aaron's thing was to be king,
Priest.
priest. Thank you. Then in Exodus 32, what did we learn? Why were the Levites chosen?
Well, when Moses said, whoever's Lord come to me, all the sons of Levi gathered together to him.
Mm-hmm. And they were separated because of what they did, right? Because do you remember what they did, y'all?
Build
Well,
an
they
altar,
killed,
the golden
they
calf.
killed the others who were idolaters, right?
Yeah, they
Well,
killed
this-
like what, 3,000?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, they
Was
they
that
melted
after the
Ju-
calf?
Yeah, this
Yeah,
was during,
just after the calf.
but it was interesting that it said they were out of control because Aaron had allowed them to be out of control.
Yeah, and don't you love it when Aaron says, you know, well, we gathered up all the
Golden
Gold.
gold and
came
silver
out.
and we threw it in the fire and out pops a calf. Yeah, I don't know how it
And
happened.
the
It just
calf
popped
came
out.
out.
Yeah. What you
Yeah,
learn in
this-
Numbers?
I'm sorry, what'd you say? In
What did you
Numbers?
learn in Numbers? What does it say about the tribe of Levi or the Levites?
Said, they shall be wholly given to me
Mm-hmm.
to take the place of the firstborn
Yeah,
of
that was the important part.
everyone.
They took the place of the firstborn.
Right,
Mhm.
because before that, the rule
Yeah.
was the firstborn of every
Was dedicated to God.
was dedicated to God, and that was animals and peoples. So, but he says, okay, since the Levites are going to do this and be a service at the tent of meeting.
Mhm.
In Deuteronomy, we're told that they get no land inheritance because the Lord is their inheritance and was their provider. And they were set apart to carry the Ark of the Covenant. Then we looked at other scriptures, Deuteronomy. Now this is important. What did we learn in these verses? What were the Levites to do?
They had they didn't get an inheritance, and they had to live off of the offerings that people gave to them
Mm-hmm,
for the sacrifices.
mm-hmm.
It also said, they shall teach your ordinances to Jacob and your law to Israel. So that's where they were falling down with this thing we're looking at now, because I think these people hadn't been taught.
Yeah, they were supposed, and remember who the high priest is? Keep that in your memory cells.
Mhm.
Phineas is the high priest during this time.
Mhm.
So the Levites were to teach the law of the Lord to Israel. And since they were to live in the 48 cities, not Bethlehem, throughout the land, then all of Israel was to hear and know his law. So
Right.
somehow all of this had gotten broken down, hadn't it? In just
Yeah.
2 generations.
Mhm.
Broken down, changed, polluted.
Yeah, polluted. That's a good word, Nancy.
Yep. It's also why God doesn't have any grandchildren. You know, no matter what we did to teach our children or not teach them, they have to take up the reins and do it to the grandchildren. God only has children. He doesn't have grandchildren.
And the culture can overtake the family sometimes, you know, unfortunately.
Well, destruction of the family is what
Mhm.
the evil
Mhm.
one wants. In
Oh, yeah.
Numbers, we learned that Phineas was Aaron's grandson. But what did Phineas do? Why was he, why did he get the perpetual priesthood?
He sorted those fornicators that were, shouldn't have been doing what they were doing outside of their own people too.
Yeah, he was, there was some guy that was having an affair with a Midianite woman, and he went in with a sword, not a sword, with a spear.
Mhm.
I guess while they were having sex, I don't know. And anyway, because of that, because of his jealous for the Lord, it
Mhm.
stopped God's wrath on Israel. And because of that, his descendants would be priests of Israel, no one else. So this is where reading the history of things kind of helps.
Mhm.
So how
And
does
I
this
think
relate?
they
Go
said
ahead.
they were having a plague too at the time, and it stopped the plague, I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
stopped the yeah. Well, that's why the plague was there, was because sin was going on in the camp,
Mhm.
and God says, no, this,
Midianites had deliberately deceived them, actually.
Yes. Yeah,
And
actually
they
they
had
did.
bought into the lie.
So easy to do though, isn't it though?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is this Phineas the one that, it says he's the son of Eleazar, not
Not who?
Eli? You know, Eli.
No,
is
no,
son-
and it's not Eli, it's Eliezer. If you look at the
Eliezer is his
genealogy,
father.
Eliezer, well, no, I mean, look at the chart on page 77.
Mhm, I know.
Eliezer was one of the ones that also stopped God's wrath early
Mhm.
on when Aaron and had messed up. But
So what
Eliezer
happened?
apparently,
Yeah, what
So there was
happened with,
Phineas
go
and
ahead.
Hophni that are sons of Eli. Phineas and Hophni that died, you know, the evil sons of Eli.
No, that's
So
a different, that's different. That's not the same people.
I know, and that's why I keep looking at this dates of the judges, because those were there when Samuel came about.
Oh, they
You know,
were,
it said Eli.
yeah, Samuel was tutored by Eli. Eli had
Right.
evil sons. That's a different story and different people.
I know, with same name. So it was kind of a little confusing there.
Okay, now this is the Phineas from Eliezer, okay?
Mhm.
All right, so how does all this relate to Micah in this story? First, he consecrated his own priest and thought the Lord would prosper for him. Error number one, right?
Right.
I also think it's interesting that the Levites were the servants of the temple,
Yeah, that's
Mm.
important to know
not
too,
the
these
priests.
things.
They were the servants.
They were to serve, they were a gift to Aaron and his sons, the priests in the line of Levi, to perform service at the tent of the meeting, the tabernacle. They were not to be priests.
The priests.
They were to be Levites, servants.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Lisa. That was
Unless they were in the
important.
line of Aaron.
Yeah,
I just find it interesting that he made him a priest and thought it was a good deal, and he was supposed to be a servant.
and the Levites should have known this.
Should have.
Okay, and you're going to find out why he really should have known that in another chapter. If the Levite in Judges 17 was truly the family of Judah, he was not really a Levite. Did you catch that?
Yeah, that's, I have all kinds of question marks.
Yeah, I thought about that.
As we
Since
went through this, it was like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't.
I thought about that when I thought, if he really was from Judah, he was not a Levite.
That's right, right? And it also says he's a young man.
Mhm.
Well,
Yes.
if you look up, and this is not in your homework, but if you look up in Numbers 4, 3, and 30, Levite to work from the tent of the meeting was 30 to 50 years old. So the Levite was not from the line of Aaron and was not old enough to even be a priest.
Amen. Yeah. Because it said he was like in his 20s.
Yeah, he was a young man.
Yeah.
Well, then it gets even more complicated when we go into chapter 18. What do you have as a chapter theme for chapter 18?
I have
there.
Danites take over and burn Laish and rebuild, and Micah's image is set up in Shiloh. I don't know if any of that's correct, but that's what I have.
I messed up. Sorry. Oh,
Yeah. That's pretty much what I said.
Say it again.
yeah. Well, you say it again because I got lost.
I
in
have
my-
Danites take over and burn Laish, or however Laish is
yeah,
pronounced,
leash. Yeah.
and rebuild. Danites take over and burn Laish and rebuild, and Micah's image is set up in Shiloh.
In that, once at Shiloh, y'all, during this time,
The tabernacle.
and yeah, the Ark of the Covenant.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All of the implements in the tabernacle were there.
So how does this chapter begin? Just like a lot of these chapters do.
No king of Israel.
Yeah. The reputation of this statement indicates it was an important fact of the author or judges wanted to communicate. So what happened in this chapter, and we can discuss our cross references. So we got the tribe of Dan. Now we're talking about Dan, right?
Mhm.
They didn't like where they were living, so they decided to get a new place.
Oh, Lisa, that is a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, and what did they say about this new place? Well, first of all, they sent out 5 spies, right?
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Remind you of anything? Ding dong.
Yeah.
Okay, they sent out 5, and what did they find?
People were quiet and secure.
Yeah, they were quiet and secure. So, we're going to skip that because that goes into too much. Most of the Danites went north to the hill country. Ephraim, 5 spies went first, then 600 warriors. And by the way, they took their wives and families, so they figured that there was probably about 3,000 people. And there's another Levite mentioned. Or is it the same Levite?
It's the same one because he's in the house of Micah.
Micah. Yeah. So what's going on here?
They stole the ephod and the household gods and the image and the metal image, all the pieces that Micah had set up to worship.
But
And-
also,
They took
And
the
they
kid
took
who-
the Levite too.
they took
Well,
the
here
Levite-
the Levite is named, isn't he? What's the Levite's name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Thank you.
Oh,
where do you see that?
Let's see
Verse
here.
30, verse
Yeah.
30.
The sons of
30.
Dan set up for themselves the graven image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, of the son of Manasseh. Now,
Oh,
Ah,
some translations say the son of
Moses.
Moses.
of who?
Moses.
Moses, this was confusing.
yeah.
It is
Gershom.
confusing, but it is the grandson of Moses. That is
Oh.
Jonathan. Don't you think
Or,
he should
or
know?
Manasseh, or it might be Manasseh, not Moses.
Well,
Mine
look-
says Manasseh, but
I know
Mine
that,
says
and what I'm
Moses.
saying is that most translations, actually the King James has it wrong. This is where they translated several things incorrectly. But yeah, it says that he was a grandson of Moses. Should he
Okay.
not have known the law? I mean, come on, people.
then he
Yeah.
was a Levite. Yeah, he was a Levite.
He
then.
was
Okay.
a Levite, yeah. So what is he doing wandering around in cities that he doesn't belong in?
Well,
Yeah.
also it's interesting in verse 3 that the spies recognized him.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Now, do you know what did anybody research that? How would they recognize him? And this is
He was-
in when you go look in the Hebrew language.
Must have been part of their family.
Do Southerners talk differently than Northerners?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how they recognized him, by his
Oh.
accent.
Well, they said it was his voice.
Yeah. Yeah, but when you look up the translations and you look at the commentaries, and it'll all say it was because of his dialect.
Okay.
So they
Do you
took
know-
what they. Go ahead, Ann.
Do you know what verse that is where it says they recognized him by his voice?
They
3.
said 3.
3. Mhm.
They recognized the voice of the young man, the Levite, and they turned aside there and said to him, "Who
Okay.
brought you here?" So they took what they wanted, Micah's priest, his idols, and ephod. Now, they asked the priest to go with them, didn't they? What did they offer him?
Well, they said that would you rather be a priest to Micah's household or the whole tribe of Dan?
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
This is an
More
upgrade, isn't it?
people. Yeah, it's an upgrade. Blah.
So the Danites rebuilt the Dan and named it Dan. You all got that right? They set up the image there, and all the time God's house was at Shiloh. The image was at Dan, the same image made by Micah with the silver he had stolen from his mother. She had dedicated to the Lord for an image. And this is where it says, ESV says Moses instead of Manasseh. Commentaries also point out this difference. If Moses is the correct interpretation, the Levite of these chapters was from the tribe of Levi, as was Moses. And they were continuing. Just a little side note on the Danaanites. The people of Dan wanted the best possible situation for the least amount of effort. They bullied Micah, and then they slaughtered the inhabitants of Laish. The city they called Dan later became a center of idolatry in 1 Kings. In the end, however, Dan was, as a tribe, virtually disappeared. It was not included in the tribes cataloged in 1 Chronicles, nor is it listed among the tribes from which the prophesied 144,000 witnesses will come in Revelation.
Hmm.
They have lost some favor here, haven't they?
Mhm.
Well, then we go to chapter 19, and this is, what do you think about this husband? Okay, he's got this woman. She played harlot, which means she messed around on him. He was a concubine, and she took off and she went to daddy's house, right?
Mhm.
A concubine was a woman who possessed the status of wife, but was not the principal wife of her husband. Okay.
Right.
So then he starts bringing her back home. This is after 5 days of, oh, just stay here. And why do you think the father wanted him to stay so long?
Now that was confusing.
It
couldn't-
was, wasn't it?
Mhm.
They sat there and ate and drank all day, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think he was trying to corrupt the guy, even more corrupt than he already was.
Hmm.
So they get to Gabeth, and these are the guys. Now, who threw out? Okay, they wanted to have sex with the guy, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And what does the host say? By the way, nobody offered them a place to stay. So these people were so,
Selfish.
selfish, but they didn't know the rules, did they at all? Because if a stranger comes in and they sit in the square, that somebody's supposed to offer them to stay the night. And that's not just Jewish. That was just a custom of the times. But some guy from out of town came by and said, well, here, come stay with me and I'll take care of you, right? So then they come, they say, oh, we wouldn't have sex with the dude. What does that remind you of? And
But look, it said it was an old man who came. So maybe he was old enough to have known the laws that had not been properly passed down. Because it was an old man that came in. But the
then
old
he offers what?
Pardon?
What does he offer to the guys?
I know, he said,
Daughter.
but he still has a virgin daughter. I thought those ages weren't working out for me.
Yeah. And then who threw the concubine out the door?
Don't know who did.
Her husband. It tells us
Was
her
that-
husband
was the
did it.
husband? Oh, what a prince.
I mean, he went to fetch her and then he just throws her outside. Well, go ahead and have your way with her. Just don't touch me.
Exactly. But when he went to get her, it said he went to get her with tenderness. And then he throws her out the door. A little problem there.
Well, when you read verse 24, which was interesting to me, which is what they thought about women at that time. The guy whose house they were at, he says, here's my virgin daughter and his concubine, ravish them and do whatever you wish, but do not commit such an act of folly against this man.
Wicked.
So, that's what a woman meant in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it still immorality? I mean, no matter who they were ravishing, it was immoral. And all I can think of is that verse 6 and 17. Everybody's doing what's right in their own eyes.
And I look at today's society, we're throwing our kids out the door
Yes,
into
we
this
are.
sin,
Mm-hmm.
and it is killing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He says that nothing had ever happened like this in Israel. I guess they forgot about Sodom.
Seriously.
Well, there
It-
was so much messed up, and it's so easy for us to sit here and say, oh, it's messed up. But how messed up is our society?
It's
Mhm.
very messed up.
Equally.
Well,
Mhm.
Our
and Sodom
society's
was not
terrible.
actually Israel. I mean, Sodom was a pagan society. These are
Yeah.
people who are allegedly people of God, and they're behaving just like the Sodomites.
Amen.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it says here they belong to the tribe of Benjamin.
Yeah, which is why God told him to kill everybody when they first
Exactly.
got to the promised land.
Mhm. He knew their hearts.
But this describes what happened in the time of Judges. So Judges 20, what's the theme of Judges 20?
Have Israel wars with Benjamin.
Yeah. Yeah. So why the war? What happened? They gathered up at Mitzvah to decide what was to be done about the sin of Gebeth. And of course, if you read the story of what the husband said to the people, you know, he kind of twisted some facts, didn't he?
Mhm.
Kind of confronted them.
But Israel did, in verse 18, it did inquire of God who should go first in the battle. And who should go first?
Judah.
Judah. Bethel is also in verse 26. And the Ark of Phineas and the priests were there also. Okay, so everybody was there. Israel heard from the Lord because it was before there's another misspelling. Let me see if I can figure it out. This one happens. Israel heard from the Lord because.
It's looking like that was kind of a setup to have a war now, because I don't know, the way I'm reading it, you know, he put the concubine's pieces all over. So it sounds like he wanted to plan the war.
Who did?
He woke up and chose violence. Like he woke up with agenda.
Who? I'm sorry, I got lost. Who are you talking about?
The man whose concubine was murdered. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The man sees his concubine. There she was lying at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold in 19. So I think that then he takes her in pieces. So in chapter 20, they meant to kill me. They violated my concubine. She is dead. So I took hold of my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout the country of the inheritance of Israel, for they have committed abomination and outrage in Israel. Behold, you people of Israel, all of you, give your advice and counsel here. So he woke up and was like, nope, I'm getting even.
Revenge.
Revenge. There you go. That's the word.
Yeah.
Whatever the word is that I was looking for. But he woke up with an agenda.
I use the word purge.
But he's not guiltless himself.
No, he's not, is he?
No.
Always somebody else's fault.
But again, nobody's taking accountability at this time. They're all just doing their own thing.
Mhm.
Well, twice Israel lost people, right?
Right.
And they killed all but 600 men of the tribe of Benjamin, totaling 25,100 plus 30 men of Israel were killed. These internal battles brought on by sin brought death to over 65,000 people that were to be holy to the Lord. This one incident. The nation of Israel had degenerated into this at the time of Judges. When we go into chapter 21, let me minimize this. Okay, I find this one just hilarious, really. I mean, it's like, uh-oh, we killed all of Benjamin. What are we going to do? We can't have that because we're going to have 12 tribes, right?
Well, and they've got to have wives.
Yeah,
Well,
but they made an
and
oath
it-
that not to give their
So now-
wives unto Benjamin.
Yep,
So what did they come up with?
steal some.
Go get some pagans.
They were actually Israelite women who were virgins,
Mhm.
and they went to the festival and they were kidnapped by the tribe of Benjamin to become wives. Now there was only 400, so we'll get to that.
Mhm.
But what did they tell the fathers or the people to make it okay with them? They were stolen, they weren't given, so you're okay, you're covered. But we had to do this to save the tribe of
Oh,
Benjamin.
okay.
Do you ever hear lie after lie after lie just to cover up the initial screw up?
Mm-hmm.
We're hearing it today.
Yeah,
That-
Putin's fault.
Somebody
I
else
get,
is,
I get the word polluted from, and I'm finding that it stayed with me. There's a story in Ezekiel about the pot.
Hmm.
And I don't remember exactly where it is, but as we human beings disintegrate, we get polluted so that what we decide to do or all of our decision making and our lifestyles and all the craziness, it's just polluted.
Hmm.
And it's going to get so bad that we even pollute the pot that we're in, which is our country, our world.
It
And
is.
I keep on reverting back to that as I was reading Judges, is like they're just getting all really, really messed up.
And yeah, and when you keep on following that, when you fall into that degraded mind status, it builds on builds and builds on itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just gets worse and worse.
I think you'd have to understand at that point why repentance is so essential to God.
Yeah, yeah.
Serious repentance. Turn around, go the other way, forget what you're doing, change your mind.
Yeah.
We looked at 1 Samuel and Ruth at the very end. They wanted a king to rule them like other nations. And on Ruth took place during the time of Judges. Have you done Ruth, anybody? I know
I have.
No,
yeah, it's
very good.
fascinating. But to
Yeah.
think that was happening while all this other stuff was going on.
Mm.
So in conclusion, how's this study impacted your life?
It's current times, that's for sure.
Nothing's
Focus
new.
on God, really and truly keep your eyes focused on Christ and just try to get through this society that we live in and try to be a light.
not only
It just
that,
becomes more and more. Go ahead.
stay in the word so that we can't say that we didn't know. That's why we have to continually study so that
Yeah,
we
that
know.
was what I was going to say. The word is essential. If you are not in the word, know the word, continually inputting it into your heart and mind. I mean, reviewing it. You can't survive. You can't.
I can't.
No,
yeah.
not as unto the Lord, you can't.
People a lot of times will ask why I am, or where do I get my peace from? Because I'm peaceful most of the time. And I have been able to share my source. And people are searching for that. So for me, that's something that I find myself sharing more than I used to. And it's not because I strike up the conversations, it's the conversations are struck up by other people. and I'm able to give them that answer that my source is God.
Mhm.
And then I'm able to share my witness.
Mhm.
And I don't know what else to do.
I think that's why you're doing what we're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Well,
yeah,
when you
I
look
don't
at,
know what else to do in reaction to our society.
well, okay, and that goes into the next question. In those days, there was no king of Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. How did this truth of these verses become evident in your daily life? We can go on for hours on that one, can't we?
Oh, yeah, we better make sure that it's God's, what we're following God and not what's right in our own eyes.
Yeah, and you have to question that all the time, don't you?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I have to say
That's a daily
precepts,
reflection question. I mean, truly daily. Okay, Lord, what do you have for me today? How would you like me to
Mhm.
respond to this, that, or the other?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a daily examination, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah,
So what do you think God
Especially,
wants you to do? Go ahead, Ann.
especially in the time of war, it's just hard to, just think of all that and figure out what God's plan is.
Yeah. It's really sad to watch all the things going on, and it's horrible to watch TV I watch the news and keep up on things, but it is just scary out there. The things that the schools are doing, the government's doing, preachers are doing, everything is just becoming, as Nancy says, more and more polluted.
I saw an incident at our mall lately, and I guess I did what was right in my own eyes, but there were two girls that had apparently gone into the sporting goods store with empty bags and walked out, each one of them with full bags. And I know they were girls, they couldn't have been 16 years old. And the buzzer at the door of the mall is going ding, 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 ding. And I was just there walking the mall, and I'm right there at the time that everything's going off. And these girls were doing a slow stroll with two shopping bags full of stolen merchandise. And I keep walking, and the employee of the store came to the doorway of the store and said, "Do you girls intend to pay for that stuff, or are you just stealing it?" And they didn't hurry their pace. They didn't do anything. They kept strolling, and I kept walking. And he says, "Well, I'm so sorry that you're so hard up that you have to steal this stuff," and turned around and went back in the store. And that is all that happened. He didn't call the mall police. He didn't call the police. And then when I finished walking the mall, the girls were standing outside by a minivan, which to me indicated that somebody had driven them there. They weren't old enough to drive. And they're going through these shopping bags. And I thought, Jesus, what was I supposed to do? I kept walking, so I didn't feel good about it. I still don't feel good about it because it was wrong. But I mean, there
In
was.
California, it's a daily occurrence because nothing is punishable in California under $950 or something, like $1,000. So it's a daily occurrence at grocery stores, Walmart, Target. You
Yeah, they
name
just
it,
walk
every
in
day.
and grab
They
what they
just
want
walk
and walk
in and
out.
grab stuff and walk out. It's totally
It's total
just
lawlessness.
crazy on lawless in California. Yeah.
It's just lawlessness.
Those days are these days.
Absolutely. That's what I think every time I just am somewhere and you see people just literally walk out. One man at Lowe's had like a Santa bag basically behind him, and he had like power tools, and he just walked out and they didn't even question him. So
They have, I remember seeing on television, they had this guy went into Walmart, grabbed a bicycle, $300, $400 bicycle, and rode it in the store and out the door.
it was probably California.
Happens in Michigan too.
I go back to Ecclesiastes where There is nothing new under
under
the
the
sun.
sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is so sad, isn't it?
It is.
And this is the example these young kids are growing up with now. So
Mhm.
sad to see.
Well, I've enjoyed studying this with you guys.
Oh, this has been great.
Thank you
Denise.
so much.
Thanks.
This has been amazing.
Yeah, really,
Thanks.
Judges is a lot different than I thought it would be, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Didn't realize it's going all this killing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
You're an
Mm.
excellent teacher, Denise.
I,
Yes, you are.
I just kind of lead you guys down and try not to lead you astray. Try to
I'm
keep
just
you.
gonna miss everyone, meeting everybody,
I
for a
know.
couple months, but enjoy your break. Much needed.
I
Mhm.
am going to enjoy it very much.
Yeah, have you found out about the operation yet?
No,
If
my
you
my
do-
husband's in a little bit of the doghouse on that. He finally called. He has an appointment May 2nd to talk about it.
Okay. When you
So-
find out, if you think of it, would you give a text out?
Yeah, I'll send out an email
Just
or
so
something.
we can pray during that time for you and
Oh,
him?
thank you. Yeah, because this is going to be his shoulder, so it's going to be more serious than what we've done before. Okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
look at the chats right.
Mm.
Ann has to leave early. Thank you. You're welcome. And thank you all for hanging in there with me. And Billy, thank you again. I don't know how I'm going to eat that, but I'll figure out a way.
Thank you, Denise. I was trying to send you a message. It's not going through. I think my computer froze or
Well,
something.
there's one that came up. Let me see here. Oh, chat. Yeah, you said thank you. I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So, I got to stop recording.